Well, we finally have the Final Four set. It'll be Illinois, UConn, Arizona, and Michigan making their way to Indianapolis. And before we talk about that, we have to talk about how the Elite Eight ended with the absolute amazing finish in UConn and Duke, with the Huskies with a 19-point comeback to pull off the surprising victory. And with Duke, this is just a later edition of March Sadness for them with another blown lead. I have to ask you guys, is this the biggest choke in Duke's history? And what does it say about John Skyer?
I was there in San Antonio last year. This one felt worse, though the stakes were a little bit different than the loss in the Final Four last year. I think what it says about the state of the program is that they need to change the way that they build their roster. Clearly, building a freshman-heavy team gives them a dominant regular season, but when you get into March and you play a veteran club like UConn, the difference in experience is so profound that it's not surprising that Duke melts and they melt down in those spots. So yeah, that's the change that needs to be made. It's an elite program, a superstar program with clearly a fatal flaw when it comes to March Madness.
I totally agree. I mean, it's the biggest choke since last year. Was this year a bigger choke? Was last year a bigger choke? I don't know. I mean, to me, they're kind of in the same ballpark. Two massive choke jobs. I don't know that it says a ton about John Shire. Like, he's not going to win a national championship at 38 years old. I think he still can win multiple national championships in his career. To Paul's point, I mean, they're going to keep getting talent at Duke, but I absolutely agree. Duke has to get a little bit older. You look at who they had on the floor at the time of that critical turnover in the closing seconds. They had three freshmen and two sophomores on the court. Old teams win in March. We saw that at the end of the John Calipari era at Kentucky, and I think we're seeing it at Duke. Doesn't mean you shouldn't have 4 and 5 star blue chip freshmen, but I do think it helps to have a little bit of experience on the court, and we saw that from UConn.
And we did see that there was a little bit of controversy at the end of that game, notably with the Duke radio announcer when he said that after immediately the Mullins three went in, he said that Malachi Smith should have been called for a technical foul for running on the court. The only problem was that Smith was already in the game, so therefore it's really hard to call a technical foul for a guy that should already be on the court. And we also had a little interesting moment with Dan Hurley and the official going a little head to head. Do you think technical fouls should be called in that spot, or did they warrant a technical foul at that moment?
No. Do I need to elaborate? No. There was nothing amounting to a technical foul in that situation. No.
Yeah, I mean, what you have to do in that spot, in that dramatic moment to draw a technical foul is so extreme. You probably need to like punch the referee in the stomach or pull his pants down on the court to draw a technical. There's no rules at that moment. It's madness. It's insanity. So to call a technical foul, as we spoke about before we started, it's like the most Duke response that you could possibly imagine in that moment is I want this ball back and I want to go home. This doesn't count. I want to see my mom.
And amazing, very true. And so now that we've touched on the Duke loss, now we can really focus on the teams that will be going to Lucas Oil Stadium. Ton of talent all over the court. Whenever you look at each squad, curious to know, who do you think is the best player that will be playing in the Final Four?
This is a great question, and there's obviously a tremendous amount of talent. I mean, you look at Yaxel Lendenborg. I mean, just on Michigan, their front court alone, like those three guys are incredible. Instead of saying best, I'm going to try to say most impactful. And to me, the most impactful player in the Final Four is Alex Caravan, because last night, or for when we're recording last night in DC, it was the worst shooting performance of his life. In his tournament history, he was 16-1 in tournament play entering the game. Yet with 40 something seconds left, it's Caravan who hits a three. It's Caravan who gets that loose ball, passes it back to Mullins, who sets up the 35-foot three-pointer to win the game. His impact is unparalleled, even when things aren't going right. So in a freshman young guy college basketball landscape right now, Alex Caravan's 23-year-old veteran body really stands out.
Yeah, it's an interesting question, Jordan, because like best player, you might be able to make a case for Keaton Wagler from Illinois being the best player. One of those freshmen that were kind of the dominant story of the season in this year of the freshman. Most impactful player, I think you could take it in a different direction. I guess I'll take the low hanging fruit and say Yaxel Lindeborg. I mean, this guy can do it all for Michigan. Michigan's looked as dominant as any team in the tournament, and he's a big reason why. Obviously, Michigan is balanced. They have a lot of guys that can go for double digits, but I think for Michigan to beat Arizona, to win it all. They need the Axel that they've gotten throughout this tournament. I mean, he's a guy that can hit it from 25 feet, and he can bully you inside. I mean, 6'9", he can do it all. I think he's maybe the best player in the tournament or in the Final Four. Again, kind of a crowded argument. Probably though, I think you can make a case that he's the most impactful and has been the most impactful up to this point.
And on my end, I would say that we're going to stick with the Michigan Arizona matchup, but I'm going to go with the Wildcat side. And I think probably one of the best and most impactful players is going to be Koa Pete. I mean, the Wildcats team, they are really loaded. There's really not a lot of holes on this roster. But when you look at Koa Pete, I mean, he really is, it all starts with him. His ability to just drive, his ability to really just be able to go up against anyone else that's on the court is really impactful when you think about he can go on Yaxel Lendenborg, or he can really actually, he can post up against a Daymara. That's quite the skill. And this guy, yes, he is a freshman, but he knows how to win. This guy barely lost in high school. So he knows what is at stake for this Arizona program. And so Jaden Bradley, they have a lot of key pieces on this Wildcat team, but I think it all starts with Koa Pete and his ability to just do it all for Arizona. I think it's just a truly remarkable thing. And the fact you see the size, it's up and close, truly has a size unlike any other. When you see a guy just going driving down the basket, I would not want to be standing in front of that dude at all. Um, so now that we've talked about the best players, the Final Four does have an interesting mix. It does have teams that are really heavy on experience and teams that are really heavy on talent. So when you get to this stage of the Final Four, what do you think is most impactful? Is it having that talent or having the experience that has been there before?
I mean, it's really cheating to say, but it's both, right? I don't think you're going to win a national championship with a team without talent, but I think year after year, with a few exceptions, but for the most part, we see old teams win in March. I mean, it's a cliche for a reason. We've seen it play out. We saw it last year with Florida. Florida was very talented. Were they the most talented team in the field? I don't know. They were on the short list for it, but they were also incredibly experienced. And those veteran guards for Florida last year, including Walter Clayton. How many times did Walter Clayton get him out of a jam? We saw it in the UConn rally. I mean, the freshman hit the big shot at the end, but that was a really experienced UConn team for the most part, rallying against a young Duke team. So it's kind of cheating to say both, but you're not going to win it all with a team that's not talented. But I do think you have to have a dose of experience to give yourself the best shot at this. So in college basketball, I think it's get old and stay old.
Yeah, agreed. You can't win one without the other. I guess if you had to pick one here, like you're going to pick talent over experience pretty much every time. But like Blake said, UConn doesn't win last night without a 23-year-old Alex Caravan, and that's just the big advantage that that team has. And if you're even across the board, which may not be the case, like if UConn plays Arizona, for example, there's clearly a talent advantage for Arizona. But if things all being equal, I think that experience is what separates teams. So, like when UConn meets Illinois, if you even take out the fact they played already this season, just on its face, an evenly matched team in terms of talent and teams of depth, you have to give UConn an edge because they're a little bit more experienced. So we'll see how it plays out, but you can't have one without the other, clearly, when you get to this point.
And that absolutely is true. But I think one thing that was really doesn't get talked about in the experience part is that most of the time is that these teams are gonna be exactly who they are. You won't really see a Yukon team slipping away or not looking like the team that it's been all season. Whereas with a team like Arizona that's heavy on freshmen, I think you can probably see those lulls. You can probably see, they're not playing exactly how they were all season. And so I think the same thing with Michigan. You really won't see Michigan beating itself. You really have to beat Michigan. You really have to beat Connecticut at their game. And so I think the experience part really does play a huge role, and obviously talented because all these teams are talented. But I think at the end of the day, I think the experience really does pave a way. And so, and what's really great is that these teams do have some experience. So you can't really say it's going to be just talent loaded and just going to see who's best, type of thing. So now that we can go into the matchups, and really the matchup everyone's going to be talking about is Michigan versus Arizona. I mean, these teams were absolutely amazing in the regular season. They were absolutely amazing in the tournament. Um, just a heavy affair when it comes to this team. So when you look at this game, Michigan, Arizona, who do you think has the edge?
I think Michigan has the edge just based off the fact that I believe that they both can play at a similar pace and that neither one will be intimidated by that pace. I look at it, Michigan's front line of Morez Johnson, who's an NBA draft pick. It's Jan Lindenborg, who's a potential lottery pick. It's Demara, who is like he can dunk from the 3-point line, like with his just reach out his long left arm. This is an amazing length and size up there that I think gives them like a subtle edge against Arizona in a matchup that I hope lives up to expectation because if it does, this could be like 95-92 and kind of be an instant Final Four classic.
Yeah, I think it's splitting hairs between these two. I thought coming into the tournament, these were the two best teams, even though Duke had the number one overall seed. I thought it was, Arizona and Michigan at the top. I think that's been proven throughout the tournament. I'm actually going to give the slightest of edges to Arizona. They have those 3-star freshmen, but also what I really like about Arizona is the senior leadership of Jaden Bradley at point guard. As talented as the freshmen are at Arizona, if it was just the freshmen, I would lean Michigan. But when you add in the experience and the leadership at the point in Jaden Bradley, I think that allows me to go Arizona. And the other thing I really like about Arizona, all 5 starters average in double figures. Now, Michigan is very similar with that, but with Arizona, like from night to night, you never know who's going to lead the team in scoring, and I think that can be a feature, not a bug. That one night it might be Koa Pete going off for 25 points. The next night might be Braden Burries. You could have another game where all 5 starters score 18 points apiece or somewhere in that range, and Michigan is balanced too, but I do feel like they revolve a little bit more around Yaxel Lindenborg. Whereas Arizona, again, if one guy's off, the other 4 starters might be cooking. And Arizona's got 2 really good guys coming off the bench too. 2 guys off their bench. First 2 guys off their bench were starters on last year's team that made the Sweet 16.
Yeah, I think Blake hit it right on the head that these definitely are the 2 best teams in the country right now, and it really is a shame that this won't be a national championship game because it will have the national championship game hype. But the slightest edge for me goes to Arizona. I mean, as Blake mentioned, this team is just really deep. No matter who it is, someone's going to be the leading scorer, and it can be pretty much every guy that's does play minutes. When you see just who can step up, even when someone's having a really bad game, I think is truly incredible. And I think what's kind of amazing is that they're not really shooting 3 pointers and they're still winning games. And when you see when the games change so much into the fact that 3 pointers are pretty much the go-to type of score for the country in the country, and you see Arizona just pounding it in, getting to the free throw line, just making teams not being able to keep a sense of tempo or rhythm at all. I think it's truly remarkable. This team really is annoying to play. I cannot stress enough like how frustrated teams get playing Arizona, and so I would have to give the slightest edge to the Wildcats. Now, on the other side of the bracket, we have UConn and Illinois. Illinois, kind of surprised to be in this position considering that it wasn't the favorite to win its region. UConn gets here after that miracle run. Can the Huskies can keep that momentum going against this Illinois team, or is Illinois just on a different level right now and can kind of sneak up on these Huskies?
Yeah, I think Dan Hurley said it well on CBS right in the aftermath of that Elite Eight comeback. He said, "We just believe we're supposed to win this time of year," and that is, really kind of the ultimate X factor for UConn. We've talked about how this is a experienced UConn team. They've been through the fires. That experience showed in that second half rally against Duke. So I like that a lot about them. What I like about Illinois though is Illinois on offense was good all season. I thought their defense has really rounded into form throughout the tournament. I think for Illinois to win, which I think they can, I think they need Keaton Wagler at his best. He was really good against Iowa, and I think they'll need him to be really good again. But because I know these teams played earlier in the year, UConn won, but I think Illinois is a little bit of a different team because I think they are playing a little better defensively right now than they were earlier in the season.
Yeah, I think Illinois has got a shot, guys, if UConn is cold as they were from 3 for most of the game against Duke. I think UConn is so reliant on that outside shot that if they're, 5 for 22, that's a clear recipe for an Illinois win. Um, I think there's a bit of destiny about UConn right now. I don't think that's going to mean they beat an Arizona or Michigan because that's going to be a bear. But I think this is a good matchup for them. I think they have confidence from playing them earlier this season. I think they feel like, wow, we kind of got lucky against Duke. We need to reapproach how we like instigate our offense, what we look like in the half court set. So I think there's an aspect of they can get better offensively, and as long as they shoot better from three, I think UConn has what it takes to win this game.
Yeah, and I think UConn really can keep up with Illinois' offense right now. And when you see Illinois, I mean, yeah, Keenan Wagler gets all the attention, but Stojakovic, I mean, this dude's the unsung hero of that team. If he's playing at the same level, if he has that spark that he brought in the Elite Eight, I mean, this Illinois team looks like it really can beat almost anybody. But I think UConn, just like I always talk about with the experience and just it was an off night of shooting for them against Duke, and they still pulled it out. I don't think you can really see that happening 2 games in a row. Dan Hurley has been at this stage before. This dude has not lost in the Final Four yet. And he's going to have this team ready. I think in reality, I think Illinois faces an uphill battle against UConn and the Huskies. It's really their game to lose to get to the national championship game. Now that we've talked about the games, now we need to talk about predictions. So, who do you think is advancing to the national championship game, and who do you think is cutting the nets by the end of this?
So I'm down for UConn and Michigan. I've committed myself at this point, and I think Michigan wins that game. UConn winning it would be a really incredible story. But Michigan and Arizona, I think we all agree on that. That game is on a different level. I think the winner of that game goes on to win the whole thing.
Yeah, I agree that the winner of Michigan Arizona will win it all. I've given Arizona the slightest of edges over Michigan, so I'll stick with that. I will take Arizona to win it all, and I'm picking Illinois to beat UConn. I think we're going to get two great semifinals. At least on paper, they look like they're going to be two really, really good ones. Illinois has been very consistent throughout the tournament, and their balanced attack. Could UConn do it? Of course they could. They're probably going to be the favorite in this game, but I'll take Illinois and say they win the semifinal. Arizona wins it all.
And for me, I think UConn comes up first in the semifinal. I think they're just too much for Illinois to really get a handle on. And then probably the game of the year, I'm going to stick with the Wildcats. I stuck with them at the beginning of this, and I think they'll be able to get this Michigan team. Even though Michigan has somewhat kind of looked better, I think Arizona is just too deep, and they pull away from it at the end of the game. And national championship game between UConn and Arizona, the Wildcats finally get that second banner. I think they're going to overwhelm UConn. I think by the time they get to that 8 minute mark in the second half, you're really going to start to see the pressure of UConn just be like, we don't, is there going to be a chance we can come back in this game? And I think Arizona's really going to pull away and it's going to cap off maybe one of the most dominant seasons, considering the fact that this team ran through one of the toughest conferences in the country and just completely ran through the rest of the tournament. I think it's Arizona's to lose, and I think the Wildcats will be the ones cutting the nets in Indianapolis.